Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard. A topic came up at the end of the session tonight, and the topic is prestige. I have been calling it renown in this campaign, and that was a bad choice of nomenclature. Renown is a different thing entirely. Prestige is described at the end of Chapter 7 in the DMG. And I was originally going to explain what's going on with prestige in this campaign in a statement to the players in that campaign directly, and then I realized, no, this is something that is going to affect all of my campaigns, especially and probably anyone else who's running in Dimgaard. The topic of prestige is relevant, and having a good understanding of it will help those campaigns. So here we go. Prestige is an intangible thing. It's not quantified. That heroes accumulate as they become heroes. They start out unknown, and then as they do heroic things, their positive reputation builds. And with that come benefits. People want to buy them drinks. People want to be around them. People want to help them in their missions, right? Because they're doing good things for the community. People want good things for their community, and they're willing to help. So there are things that I really like about prestige, and so what we use prestige for in Dimgaard is as a substitute for gold, right? So Dimgaard uses very, very little gold. Almost no gold is in circulation. The reason for that, there are two reasons for that. One is a very much a game-related reason, and one is more of a stylistic role-playing reason. The first one is that Dimgaard is deliberately inspired by Dark Ages cultures. And if you look at those Dark Ages cultures, like pre-Shogun Japan or pre-Renaissance Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, or pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, there was almost no currency in circulation, right? What currency that did, there was no state powerful enough to issue fiat currency that would be useful beyond their borders, right? So you didn't see currency being circulated. What currency was circulated beyond internal economics was almost always precious metal based, right? So, whatever the coin was, the actual value of it was the gold content or the silver content, and the fact that it had been stamped into currency was not a relevant thing. But as a consequence of that, currency was very much hoarded and not circulated in these medieval Dark Age cultures. So what you ended up with as a response to that was feudal society, where in order to establish an exchange of goods and services, it came an exchange of promises, right, and obligations. So you promise me that I'm going to get enough of your harvest to feed myself and my soldiers, and in return, I and my soldiers will protect you from the rampaging Vikings or other marauders who might come this way, the Huns or whoever. And it evolved to become much more complex. But the point is that it was not currency based. It was based upon obligations and promises between parties. So Dimgaard emulates that, and part of that emulation is having almost no money in circulation. So that leads directly to the problem of how do PCs get the gear and equipment that they're expected to have? I mean, so for example, by third level-ish, someone who is proficient in heavy armor should be wearing splint mail, and by eighth level-ish, they should be wearing plate mail. And in the game, those items, those have a currency price associated with them. So if you're not going to have currency in circulation, what do you do about that? And so what you end up doing is that you issue those as a reward for prestige, right? So the heroes through the first couple of episodes have demonstrated that they are people within the community that should be supported in their efforts. And so the blacksmith, wanting to have a town where heroes exist and thrive, he rewards the efforts by allocating the resources to craft armor for the PCs. And goes on from there. Potions of healing are awarded by alchemists or whoever, and scribes scroll spell scrolls, and that can be called upon to reward heroic activity. So that allows, without the use of gold in circulation, the PCs to acquire the equipment level that they are expected to have. Right? And then that gets me to the second reason that I really like to use prestige instead of gold, or rely so heavily on it, is that it eliminates greed as the motivation for the PCs. I do not like the game whenever the player's like, well, my PC he's not a hero. He's a greedy son of a gun. So what are you going to pay him to rescue the princess? Right? That is, to me, is just a bad story dynamic. Right? You're trying to build a heroic fantasy story, and then you introduce this vehicle that makes the people who should be the heroes these money grubbing shysters who are little more than extortionists themselves, right? So So by removing gold in circulation, right, is by establishing that the way you're going to get the things that you want is if you establish goodwill among the other people in the community, right? Then you make it very disincentivized for a PC to be greedy, right? Greedy PCs, they just don't have, there's the stuff to satisfy their greed is just not there, right? So then the players have got to find other heroic motivations for their activity, and it really does force them in the direction of constructing heroic characters, both from a statistical standpoint, and then also from a role-playing motivational standpoint, right? Because there's an incentive. If you want to thrive, you are a part of a community, and you need the goodwill of that community. They need to recognize that you are a hero within the community and reward you for being that hero with the things to keep progressing as a hero. And that's just a much better dynamic from a story building standpoint, from a game design standpoint, than saying, okay, let's establish a medium of exchange and see how good you are at extorting the most gold from the environment in order to perform the things that you should be doing. So that's the second reason that I really prefer using prestige over gold. Now, in this current campaign, I had experimented with quantifying prestige, very similar to the way that renown is quantified. So if you look up renown in the DMG, it's tied to specific organizations, right? So there might be a religious order, and you have renown within that religious order that corresponds to certain things, benefits that they will give you, and rank within that organization. So I was going to try to implement that on a broader level, like having instead of just having it tied to specific organizations, have it tied to a culture as a whole. That you would have a global renown rank. That was really quantifying prestige was what I was doing, and it turned out to be a bad idea. Sometimes I have bad ideas, and this was one of them. It was extremely tedious. It imposed a level of bureaucracy that I did not like, and record keeping that I did not like. It eliminated a very important and rewarding dynamic that comes up with prestige, and that is the interaction between the players and the DM when they evaluate prestige, right? So, the PCs are at a certain level. They begin discussing, well, I should have these things at this level, and the DM is like, well, this is the amount of intangible prestige, and you can't discuss a specific number with it, but you can talk about it in intuitive terms. And so you can say, well, I think, so yeah, you need the expensive spell component to cast Greater Restoration, and people would like for you to be able to cast Greater Restoration, but that's just a really hard thing to come up with in this community. 600 gold, a particular component worth 600 gold pieces. But yeah, you have the prestige that they would make that sacrifice and come together and get you enough to cast that one, maybe two times. So we'll say twice. And so, that dynamic where you are discussing the player's reputation, the response by the community, that is a very positive interaction. It helps to focus in on the character defining elements within a community and what those character defining elements mean within the game. It adds definition and depth to the characters and the environment, and that's just a really positive thing to do. And I much prefer that to having a list of specific items. You rescued this person, this is worth this much prestige, and you explored this location and it's worth this much prestige. Yeah, that's just overly tedious and too much record keeping, and interferes with that very smooth character building dynamic that I like so much. So that's where I'm at with prestige, and I hope that it is useful to both the players in my campaigns as well as other DMs who are considering some of the problems that I have found that prestige addresses. It would be great if you have a comment relevant that you would post, or if you wanted to contact me directly via the various messaging channels that I'm on, that would be great as well. Thanks.